Hey y'all, Tanny Cooks here, and today I'm going to show you how to make an absolutely delicious meal. I'm going to show you how to cook a fish that looks like salmon, but it's not. I'm going to show you how to make some fabulous, delicious greens with a mix of collards, turnips, and some other things as well. And then we're going to make fabulous turmeric rice that is so flavorful. You're going to want to make this as your go-to yellow rice going forward. So let's get to cooking. So I'm going to start cleaning my seasoning meats. These are the meats I'm going to use to season my greens. So I have a huge smoked turkey leg and also 2 pork ham hocks that I had previously frozen and then thawed out overnight. So this is a ham hock. You can see the meaty part and then it has that thick smoked skin on the outside. It will impart a lot of flavor to our greens. I'm making 2 pots of greens, one with pork and one with turkey. I am washing this meat because, as you'll be able to see in a moment, there are some gritty bits that fall off into this water, and I'd rather have it fall off here during the cleaning process instead of in my pot when I'm cooking. So look at that. I'm glad I washed all of that off. So next up, I am cleaning my turkey leg, and I'm just giving it a rub just to see if there are any loose pieces of fat or skin or any gritty bits that I want to get off now before I cook with it. So in my big pots, I put my smoked turkey leg with about 5 or 6 bay leaves, and then in a separate pot, I also have it filled with water and my 2 ham hocks and bay leaves. So we're going to cook these the same way, just one contains pork, and after it cooks for about an hour, you can see the fat that has released from it already. Now, I personally don't like for my meat to cook down for the hours and hours that I cooked my greens for. So I take my meat out and sit it to the side. And once it's cooked for an hour, and then I'll add it back into the pot closer to the time when the greens are finished cooking. It's just my personal preference. I can tell when this meat has been boiled or simmered too long. So I have it sitting in a glass dish, and then I'll let it sit in the refrigerator until I am ready to use it again. I also remembered to take out my bay leaves out of my water before I add my greens because no one wants to chew on a bay leaf, right? This is a dried bay leaf, so it won't break down when it cooks. These are the greens that I'm going to use. So I have this 32-ounce bag of shredded collard greens. This is what my store had this day for collard greens. I also have a couple of bunches of mustard greens. You can see they have the curly or rigid edges. And this is my bunch of turnip greens. It has the smoother edges, so I have a couple of those as well. I thought I was going to use some cabbage, but with the greens that I had, collards, mustard, and turnip, I decided not to use the cabbage after all. So in another clean bowl, I am going to add my favorite white vinegar. I got this habit from my mother. She uses vinegar for a lot of things, cooking, cleaning, all sorts of things. I love it to clean my produce. So I have my bag of shredded collard greens, and even though the bag always says it's been triple washed, I just go ahead and give it a wash through one more good time with some vinegar just to be sure there's not anything in there that I want to pick out. Sometimes a couple of the leaves might be discolored, but I don't usually find that these greens are dirty or sandy, but I still go through it and pick out a little bit. And so I'm going to let this bowl fill up, and it looks like I'm playing in my greens, but really I'm intentionally agitating the water and the greens to get off if there's any, I don't know, dead insect or slug on it. I want to move the greens around to make sure everything falls off of the greens into the water. So I have a colander in my second sink, and what I do basically is I just lift the greens out of the water, lift them up, and then drop them down into the colander. So whatever sand or grit falls at the bottom of the bowl, the water will hopefully stay at the bottom until I'm ready to pour it out. I don't want to just pour that out with my clean greens, right? That would defeat the purpose of what I'm trying to do here. So just lift the greens up and drop them in your colander. Once these greens are in my colander, I'm going to give them another rinse off. Now, doing this method with shredded bag greens, I usually only have to wash and rinse it one time. It's really not that dirty, and they are very clean. So I'm comfortable with that. If you feel like you need to cook these, if you need to clean these bag greens like you do fresh greens that came straight out the ground and clean them 4 times, that's your choice. You can certainly do that. So this is what the water looks like. It's green from the chlorophyll green stuff in my greens. As I pour it out, notice you don't see dirt and sand at the bottom. It's just pieces of leaves, small pieces of leaves that was there. So I rinse it off, and then I'm going to sit that to the side until I add it to my pot. So now I have my first batch of greens in one pot. And I'm going to add my second load of greens to the second pot. So these greens are just the collards. Collards do have thicker leaves, I find, than mustard greens and turnips, so I do like to get them going first so they can cook down a little bit as I clean the other greens. And the other greens are definitely going to take more cleaning because those are the ones that came straight out of the ground. They haven't been pre-washed. So I cleaned up my bowl and I'm going to fill it again with cool water and some more white vinegar. So with these mustard greens, I'm going to use my kitchen shears to cut the stems off. The biggest part of the stems tend to be more bitter. You certainly could cook with stems if you want to. It's my preference to cook with the smaller pieces of stems and not the bigger. I'm also going to pull some of the big stem off. And then with my mustard greens, I don't find that I need to cut them with a knife. They're small enough or thin enough that I can just rip them by hand. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just ripping them by hand and they cook down much more quickly than the collards that are thicker leaves. Some people know that they don't like mustard greens, but they do like turnips and collards. So if that's you, just use the greens that you do like. If you don't like turnip greens, you don't have to use it. If you don't like collard greens, you don't have to use it. Some people don't like any of these cooked greens, but they do like cooked cabbage. So go figure. The main thing is cook what you and your people like, right? So here is my bowl. You can see the turnip greens on the right and my mustard greens, curly leaf, are on the left. So I'm going to do the same thing you saw me do at the collards. I'm going to fill the bowl with cool water and I'm going to use my hand to agitate the leaves and the water to help clean them further, to get anything that's on them that shouldn't be to drop at the bottom of the bowl with the water. So I lifted these greens out of the bowl and I put them in my colander. And now I'm filling up my bowl again with water and vinegar. And I'm going to put my once cleaned turnips and mustard greens back into a bowl of water. So these are going to be washed multiple times. Up to 4 times, 3 or 4 times. It really depends each time I empty the bowl, how much sand I see at the bottom and if the water runs clear when I pour it out. That's how I know I've washed it enough. I'm using vinegar. Some people may use salt. Some people may use baking soda. So now that my collards have been cooking, you can see in the few minutes that I've cleaned my other greens, my collards have cooked down pretty good. So I'm adding my mustard greens and turnip greens that have been washed and rinsed several times to the same pot as the greens. So this is why I call this a pot of mixed greens, right? Because it's 3 different types. You can see how dark the collards are compared to the fresh greens, but they all will turn close to the same color as they all cook down evenly. And so I'm putting the lid back on that one. And now this is the pot. Now, after letting the greens cook down in this pot, the mixed greens, I did put my ham hocks back because my grandma likes her ham hocks very, very tender. So those do need to cook longer than my smoked turkey. I also added 2 or 3 tablespoons of butter because I'm Southern and we add fat to our vegetables, more fat than the meat had. So I also pulled off the meat off of my smoked turkey leg. So now I'm adding the smoked turkey leg meat back to the pot of greens. Now the collards in this pot have been cooking for about an hour. And so now I'm going to add this meat back and let it cook, simmer down for maybe another half hour or so for a total cook time of greens of about an hour and a half. But some people might cook theirs for a shorter time, maybe 30, 45 minutes. Some people might cook their greens down longer to 2 hours, 2.5 hours. It's really up to your personal taste and preference. So that's what you should cook to. I'm not cooking these greens necessarily for the nutrition. This time it's for the flavor. I decided to go ahead and add some chicken wings to this menu. So I have a pack of chicken wings that I am washing in cool water with white vinegar. You could use lemon or lime, but you see these feathers still on it? This is why I clean my chicken, because I use this time to inspect each piece to pull off any feathers or any debris that I want off. I'm going to season it with avocado oil, poultry seasoning, which is delicious on poultry and vegetables. It is vegan. It contains thyme, sage, marjoram, rosemary, black pepper, and nutmeg. It's just a delicious flavor that is sodium free. I also have granulated onion and garlic, smoked paprika, which will give a nice, beautiful color and flavor. And I also am using my favorite hickory smoked sea salt. I have a link to this in the description box. You can buy it from Amazon. It'll last you for a while. And I also have liquid smoked that I'm going to use to flavor. And I have another ingredient that I'll show you for these wings. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is make sure I dry off my wings well. I'm going to cook these in the air fryer, so I want to get a nice skin on them as they cook, so I want them to be very dry. I added my oil, and now I'm adding some liquid smoke, just enough to cover it. It's going to add flavor as well as a deep hue to it. So now I'm adding my dry seasonings. I'm liberal with my onion powder, garlic powder, smoked paprika, and poultry seasoning because those items are sodium free. No salt is included. I'm choosing to use a little bit of hickory smoked salt for flavor. Sometimes I wait till after it's cooked to salt it, but this time I just added a little bit before it cooked, and I'm using a gloved hand to massage the seasonings and the oil into the chicken. You certainly can do this step the night before and let it sit in your refrigerator covered with plastic wrap to let those flavors infuse. But if you're going to season and cook it right away, it will still be quite delicious. It all depends on what you have time to do. These are whole chicken wings as well, not drumettes. So I have my air fryer, and my air fryer has a chicken wing setting on it. And so I'm just going to add my wings to the basket without crowding the pan. Y'all, I got a new air fryer. I'm so excited. I'm going to use it soon, and so I'll do a video my first time using it. It's a different design than the one that I've been using, so I'm pretty excited. So I have my chicken wings in there, and I didn't crowd the pan so the air can circulate. So I press the chicken wing button, and on my air fryer, it cooks it at 400 degrees for 12 minutes. Now, I like mine cooked a little bit more thoroughly, so I'm setting mine to 14 minutes, but you can do what is best for your air fryer. I'm showing the gloves I use. When you use nitrile gloves, make sure it says for food service. I got these from Costco. Also from Costco is this steelhead trout. So this looks like salmon. It has a similar nutritional value as salmon, but look at that beautiful color and skin on it. I bought this because it's what they had at my local store. I'm giving it a wash. As I'm washing this, I am feeling to see if I feel any pin bones in it like I do with salmon, and I didn't. I'm going to dry this off very well, both sides, because we're going to fry this off in a frying pan, and I want to get a nice char or crisp on it. So I want it to be dry before I add my seasonings and add it to my hot pan. So I'm just using a clean paper towel to do that. Now I'm cutting each piece. The end piece tends to be a little bit thinner. You can see it on the right hand side. So that piece is a bit wider. The other pieces I cut a little bit more narrow. So out of each fillet, I got about 5 or 6 pieces. And these 2 fillets cost about $33. So it's a similar price as to what I would have paid for salmon. So look at that. It looks very much like salmon, but it's a very beautiful color. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the second fillet as well. I like to cut it first so that I can get that sharp edge on it instead of waiting until the whole fillet is cooked, and then it'll be more flaky when I cut it. So while that is going, I cleaned my hands, and now I'm checking my chicken wings, y'all, and look at how good those look. I don't even always turn my wings, although you can go in at the 7-minute mark and flip them over. Sometimes I do that, sometimes I don't. So I had a lot of wings, so I'm cooking them in batches, of course. And now my air fryer has been preheated for the first batch. So now I'm just adding my second batch of wings to my air fryer to let them go as well. And so I'm going to reheat it at 400 degrees. And then let it continue to cook until it goes off. And these I'm going to make flavored as teriyaki. So I'm using teriyaki coconut aminos because I'm confident it does not contain any soy or soy sauce. So I'm just drizzling this on the top, but you can use the teriyaki sauce of your choice. And I'm also adding a little sprinkle of dried parsley. It's very beautiful and festive, so I like that pop of green. So while that's sitting off to the side, I'm going to add a little bit of avocado oil to my fish. I was just about to say salmon because that's what it looks like, but this is the steelhead trout. And now I'm adding a sprinkle of my other seasonings. I am including Old Bay because I am an Old Bay girl and I love that on my seafood, but you can use the seafood seasoning of your choice if you choose to use any at all. You might just be happy with lemon pepper and some onion powder and garlic powder. That could be delicious as well. And so I'm just rubbing the seasoning in to both sides, the skin side and the flesh side. And so that's going to sit right there while I heat up my pan. So my pan is heating up, and I'm going to add a little bit more avocado oil, not a lot, because I just put some oil on my fish, but I want to be sure it doesn't stick. So while that's coming up to temperature, I'm going to use my parboiled rice that I buy from Sam's in the 25-pound box. Because this is parboiled rice, I don't find that I need to rinse it off before I cook it in my rice cooker for my turmeric rice. I'm using my aroma cooker, and I'm using lower sodium chicken broth. So you can see the sodium is still not very low, but it is lower than it would be if it wasn't the 30% reduced sodium. So I'm using onion powder, garlic powder, and dried turmeric. So the way I make rice is by measuring 2 cups of rice to 4 cups of liquid. That's the way my mother made rice. That's the way she taught me. So that's how I do it. My rice cooker is really old, so the pan isn't non-stick anymore. So I do add a little bit of oil inside of it just so my rice doesn't stick too much to the bottom. So now that that's covered with oil, I'm just adding my 2 cups of rice to the bottom, and I'm adding my whole carton of chicken broth. This is 32 ounces, so that's 4 cups. So that's the exact measurements I need for my rice. 2 cups of rice to 4 cups of liquid. And it looks pretty good now, but I am adding some garlic powder and onion powder. And I'm not adding salt, remember, because it was some in our broth. And now I'm adding some turmeric. I'm not measuring it, but if I measured it, I would say it was about a hefty teaspoon. So I'm going to give that a stir to get that beautiful golden color. And this is what's going to make our rice yellow, and it will have some health benefits in the turmeric. It helps reduce inflammation, especially if you add some black pepper to the mix to help the turmeric do what it needs to do in your body. So while my rice cooker is going, I press the button for white rice, so that's going to go and do its own thing. I am adding my fish to my heated fry pan. I let it cook, and then I flip it once. I like my salmon to have a nice color on the outside, but not be all the way cooked through. I prefer to undercook it just a little bit, because when you take the salmon out of the pan, that residual heat is still going to cook some, and I don't want this fish to be dry. Now, it is fatty. It has a good amount of fat in it, so as long as you don't overcook it, it will still be very juicy, which I guess pretty much goes for any meat, as long as you don't overcook it. But some meat tends to naturally be not as fatty, and so we don't have that issue with this. So you can see my air fryer teriyaki chicken wings. The second batch came out. Now I took out my first batch of my fish. I'm just going to hit it with a little bit of liquid smoke. Next up, my greens are almost done. They're just chilling out on the stove. And so what I'm going to do is just add a little sprinkle of apple cider vinegar for flavor. My family really likes that. Some people might add a teaspoon or tablespoon of sugar if you want that. It takes about 20 minutes or so, I think, and then my rice finishes and it beeps. And look at that, y'all. Each piece is individual. It's not goopy or gunky. I love this aroma rice cooker. I think I bought it from Walmart years ago, and that color is beautiful. Now look at this full meal, y'all. Very, very delicious with 2 meats. I have my salmon that's cooked. Oh, I did it. I said salmon. It still had trout. I have my teriyaki wings, and I have my turmeric yellow rice. And 1 pot of my mixed greens. This is the pot that has the smoked turkey in it. What I usually don't show you guys is that when I cook for my family, I plate it up and I deliver it to them. So I cook for them and I deliver it to them. So I tailor it to what they want. This plate has ham hocks on it. A couple of these plates don't have ham hocks, and they have like 2 pieces of fish and chicken, greens, and rice. So people in my family eat different ways, and so I cook different ways for different people, which is completely normal in my opinion. So this is a plate that I made for me, and when I cook for myself, I never plate a lot of food. Like, this is for 2 days, obviously, so it does look like a lot, but the next day I'm always thinking, dang, I should have packed another plate so I could eat for an extra day, but I never do that. I am pretty generous with the food that I cook, because food is my love language, and so that's why I enjoy cooking for my people and taking the food to them. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please click the playlist to see my other easy dinner recipes, and subscribe to my channel and let me know what you would like to see me cook in the future. Thank you so much for watching.